I'm Alexander McCall Smith. I'm the author of the #1 Ladies Detective Agency series of books set here in Botswana. I'm writing the 9th book in the series, and I thought that I would get into one of these canoes and go off into the delta to see if there's anything here which might interest Mara Motswe. Mara Motswe had a detective agency in Africa, at the foot of Kali Hill. These were its assets: a tiny white van, 2 desks, 2 chairs, a telephone, and an old typewriter. Then there was a teapot in which Mara Motswe, the only lady private detective in Botswana, brewed redbush tea, and 3 mugs, 1 for herself, 1 for her secretary, and 1 for the client. What else does a detective agency really need?
These are the opening lines of the first book in the very popular series about Mara Motswe, the Botswana detective whom readers all over the world have taken to their hearts. The man behind the books is the Scottish author Alexander McCall Smith, who returns to Botswana every year in search of new mysteries for his leading lady to solve.
I'm going to start writing that while I'm in Botswana. I've already written in my mind the first page. I can hear the first page. That's what happens. I hear the first page. I hear the books.
He lives in Edinburgh, but was born in southern Rhodesia, today's Zimbabwe. Here in Botswana's tranquil Okavango Delta, he is preparing the 9th book in his series, The Miracle at Speedy Motors. It's important for him to capture the true essence of Botswana, an essence which permeates the books.
I listen to what people say to me, listen to things, and it's amazing if one keeps one's ears open, what you hear. You hear remarkable stories about people. And then also just being here and, I suppose, absorbing the feel of the country. It's a country which has this very powerful effect.
The chief reason for the success of the book series is probably the main character, the shrewd, kind-hearted and traditionally built Mara Motswe.
I think I'm going to bring Mara Motswe up here in the next book, and of course she'll probably go out in one of these canoes. The problem is she's a very, very traditionally built lady, a very large lady, and I'm not sure if she would fit in one of these canoes. Mighty, have you got a very big canoe for this lady who's very, very large? Very wide, she. Good. Thank you, thank you.
Today there's a walking safari on Hammerkop Island in northern Botswana's Okavango Delta. The guides, Mighty and Moses, hand out instructions.
When we come across any one of the big animals, don't panic. I'm sure that their safety is very important. Safety is come first.
I think that every time one goes out into the bush, if one keeps one's eyes and ears open, you can learn new things, and it's always very useful talking to local people who know everything there is to know about the bush.
These trees, the roots, can cure malaria.
Right.
They're called large fever berries. So you can take the roots and then boil it, maybe some couple of minutes, and then you can drink the water can help you from malaria.
Oh, right, yes. Yeah.
If you have
They can tell you a great deal. So something that seems to be just a rather pretty scene, in fact, is a very rich natural environment. There's a lot happening in the bush. So you've seen a lion, have you?
Yes.
Yes.
It looks like
Just this side of the...
Side of this.
When the lion was seen, my immediate reaction was, how close is this lion? In general, it's preferable to have lions a considerable distance away as far as I'm concerned. I thought that lion was rather too close to us, but in fact we were, I gather, perfectly safe. So my immediate reaction was that we should go in the opposite direction. But the lion decided to do that. So we parted company in a very satisfactory... It was a very satisfactory encounter from both points of view. Is that recent, Moses? Is that fresh?
Yeah,
Is
it's for this morning.
This morning? He was
Yeah.
there this morning?
Yeah, it's for this morning.
Many readers wonder if Ma Ramotswe exists in real life. The idea for the character came to Alexander McCall Smith when he was invited to lunch at Friends in Mochude village. A very energetic woman offered him a chicken, which he chased all over the compound.
She was a traditionally built woman, wearing a red dress. That's all I remember about her. She had a very nice smile, and she was giving a chicken to my hostess of the people I was staying with in Mochude, and we went to collect it, and she chased the chicken around the yard. And I can still see her chasing the chicken around the yard. And that made me think that I would one day write about somebody like that. It just made me curious about it. But it took many years before I did that. Much later on, I sat down and Ma Ramotswe came into existence.
Since the unforgettable chicken chase, the 8 books about the #1 ladies detective agency have become international successes. The books have been translated into 41 languages. 15 million copies have been sold worldwide, including 8 million in the United States.
I don't really know why she's a detective. I hadn't, when I wrote about her at the very beginning, decided that she would be a detective. It actually proved to be a very good choice. Being a detective means she gets about the place, she meets all sorts of people, and it gives an opportunity for humorous situations as well. So it proved to be very, very useful, although of course she isn't the usual sort of detective.
A reader wanting foul play, action and sudden death won't get much joy out of the books. The suspense is in the moral dilemmas that Ma Ramotswe and her colourful assistant Ma Makutsi encounter on their cases.
The fact that she was seeing so many different people and encountering so many different problems, in a way, meant that I could concentrate on developing a sense of place and of the psychology of the place and of a bit of its history.
Ma Ramotswe's love of her home country, Botswana, is a theme common to all the books in the series.
The sense of place in detective fiction is often very strong. It's a central aspect of that, and I think these books have quite a strong sense of place. Botswana is one of the characters. Ma Ramotswe's relationship with her country is an important point in the books. She describes herself as an African patriot, that she is very fond of Africa and proud of Africa, and she's very proud of her country in particular.
Would you say that Ma Ramotswe is typical for the Botswana woman?
I think that she has many of the characteristics of Botswana women in general. She's got a resilience, she's hardworking, she's got a good sense of humour, and that's a quality that I do notice in people here. And I certainly didn't make her up entirely, because obviously when a writer writes about a fictional character, creates a fictional character, the writer will use experience of people that he or she has had. So I've met people like Ma Ramotswe, or I've met people who have some of her qualities and perhaps not others, and on the basis of that I've produced a single character, Precious Ramotswe.
One of the many strong women who have inspired Alexander McCall Smith for his Ma Ramotswe is Botswana's Minister of Health.
In his writings, I do
I'm sure I do come into his mind. In fact, he just recently admitted to saying that he really, when he writes these books, he doesn't have a single character in mind. However, the Minister of Health is his constant reference. He said my vitality, which is nice. When he writes about Maramotswe, he thinks of my vitality and all that, and it does spur him on. So I would say I see myself in there, but then so does every Botswana woman, I'm sure.
Alexander McCall Smith, who is an emeritus professor of medical law, today spends all his time writing and meeting his readers.
Reviews, people say he keeps going on about tiny white van. We know that it's tiny and it's white and it's van. So
Alexander McCall Smith, yes. Lovely, refreshing, whimsical, very gentle female characters who I think nothing more than totally appealing. It's lovely to see the sort of good side of human nature coming out in literature rather than the sort of darker, seamier side.
I think they're really great books because I love learning. I love Africa. It's like my favourite country, and I've always wanted to go there, and so I love learning about it. And I love all the characters in the books, and they're all really gentle, lovely characters.
But I think that people can be decent. It's reminded me that that being a kind, decent person doesn't necessarily have to be out of fashion. That someone else is writing about that. So I think that's what I really like about them.
And this land looked very much like, if you look off in the distance here, it was just bush.
Yep.
The #1 ladies' detective agency is now being made into a film. The director is award-winning Anthony Minghella. To shoot it, a village has been erected at the foot of Kale Hill. Today, Alexander McCall Smith is visiting the set for the first time.
You look at this is all wood. One of the things that Alexander McCall Smith does so fabulously is that he takes a detail, and it is the one detail that conjures up the scene or the chapter or the country, or the mood of who a character is. He takes that one detail. In film, we have many, many details on screen. Very first sentence in your first book is?
Maramotswe had a detective agency in Africa at the foot of Kale Hill.
And that didn't exist, of course. And what we were able to do is take what was in your imagination and to make it come to life.
Yeah.
And basically,
there
here
we are.
it is.
Amazing,
Kale Hill.
amazing.
This may be the largest film production ever in Botswana, but there's little risk that the fame will go to Maramotswe's head, promises Alexander McCall Smith.
What do you think about Maramotswe becoming a film star?
Well, I think that Maramotswe will handle it. You see, she's a very wise woman, and perhaps other women, when they discover that they become the subject of a film, would have perhaps ideas. But Maramotswe is a very wise woman. She just accepts it.